Well, mine is too, just so I have that.
There you go. So it should be working now.
Awesome. I'm just gonna pull this up.
And whenever you're ready, I am also ready.
I am ready.
Cool. Hi, thank you for coming back to Com News at WSU. I'm Kaylee Houle, and I am interviewing the Ethnic and Gender Studies Chair Head, Professor Elizabeth Stasnos. How are you today?
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Kaylee.
Yeah, of course. And before I start, I did just want to ask, what pronouns do you use, just so that I know?
No, that's great. I use she and her.
Perfect. Cool. Thank you. All right. So my first question for you is, what exactly is Title IX? And like, how is that used in like upper universities, higher education?
Yeah, so Title IX is a law from 1972. It was actually part of the education amendments at that time that came after the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And it was basically there to prohibit any sex-based discrimination in any school. It was focused on education. Um, and the idea too was that it would also encourage, I remember this personally because I went to University of Virginia that only allowed women in 1970. And
Mhm.
I attended in 1985 to 1989. It was actually weird that it was so recent that women were not allowed at UVA. And they also had very few majors at other schools. So women in the six up to the 70s in Virginia, where I'm from, predominantly ended up in majors like nursing or education, um, and fields that were considered women's fields, sort of domestic fields. Um, and I was sort of very sensitive to what Title IX was. My mom was a high school biology teacher, and she probably would have gone to medical school, except for women weren't being accepted into medical schools for the most part when she was applying. Um, so yeah, 1972 is a watershed time. The idea was prohibiting any sex-based discrimination in any school or educational program, anything that receives federal funding.
Cool.
So it covers K through 12s and higher education.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Um,
Yeah, it's a pretty broad law, and it's often challenged, because one interpretation would mean, of course, you'd have to have equality in sports. You can't have more women or men's sports. And traditionally, there were always more opportunities for men in sports in high school and college. And this forced colleges to hopefully increase the amount of women's sports as opposed to decreasing the amount of men's sports. So it's been a hot button issue that way. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I'm assuming you are a mandated reporter, correct?
No, actually, I don't think I am. I am chair of department and I can report, but if I were a social worker or had taken a job or a career path in a field that was more clinical, I think I would be a mandated reporter. On campus, maybe I don't think I am necessarily as chair of department a mandated reporter, but I have to say I take those things very seriously. And as a faculty member, I would, of course, help students get the help they need.
Yeah. Okay. So if that's the case, like, what does Title IX, um, I guess, include for like faculty members? Are regular professors considered mandated reporters, or um, is it just kind of up to their like values and morals that they have to go and report something like sexual assault?
Yeah, so on campus, I think what they've done is they have administrators who are mandated reporters, including the counseling center, campus safety. There are people on campus that are mandated reporters. And I think the majority of faculty are not mandated reporters unless they step into one of those roles, or unless, for example, our social work faculty, all of them are licensed social workers. And in our psychology department, many of them are also licensed psychologists. They would be mandated reporters because of their career field and their licensure. I think everybody who's doing K through 12, many of our faculty were K through 12 teachers before they became PhDs in education or EDD, that they would probably be mandated reporters because of their K through 12 licensure. But I think your regular academic research faculty and teaching faculty, I don't know that all of us are automatically mandated reporters on campus.
Okay, cool. Um,
Yeah.
so with that, because technically you guys aren't mandated reporters, If a student comes to you to try to report something, what would happen in that case?
Yeah, so our first instance, I think as a faculty member, what I would do is, first of all, I would try to make sure that the student feels safe and get them to a place where they could talk to someone who could actually help them. And I would hopefully be a person who could do that. I'm certainly happy to talk to student, walk them over to the counseling center, and try to get the resources they need, whether that's in the administrative side and a legal side, but also the therapy side and getting help in terms of like their experience on campus and feeling safe on campus. Like the worst possible situation is, let's say somebody harasses you and you're in the same class with them. You can't be in the same class with them. So as a faculty member, I am involved. I'm not like a mandated reporter in the sense that I have to report it, but I would report it because for me as a teacher, ethically, I'd have to report it. Also, I wouldn't, I would do whatever my administrator would tell me to do in terms of not having that student, let's say, in the same classroom with someone who had attacked them or harassed them. Because I
Okay.
think that's the major worry for faculty is that, if it's two students that, because I think the college's obligation is to make sure that the student in no way has to interact with somebody who, if there's an ongoing complaint, that they don't have to interact at all with that person, you know, whether that is like on campus, with food, in the dorm, in classroom, in the major, all that stuff would be really, you'd work hard at that as a faculty member to make sure the student feels safe.
Okay. Um, and with that being said, do you have any knowledge of like resources or like how to report sexual assault on campus as a faculty member? Um,
I guess what I've done is in the past, I haven't had a student come to me, but I know in my department that people have come to other faculty in our department and other chairs of department, and they've gone to the counseling center directly to get help for the student. So the resources I think would start there, and then the student would be given help at the counseling center usually to get any legal help that they need or any hospital help that they need.
okay. And then my last question for you is over your time at Westfield State, how do you see sexual assault as an issue on our campus? And what do you think would be the best approach to tackling such a large issue?
Yeah, it's a horrible problem. I mean, I think with this age group, I think in college generally, it's a horrible problem. The Clery Act is actually the most important change, I think, on campuses. And we did have a student at Westfield State do a study of Westfield State campus to see if we were actually working with the Clery Act um, protocols. And she interviewed, it was a senior honors project. I'm going to forget the student's name. Um, but I think she was partly criminal justice, but then also had, I think, psychology as a major. And she looked all the way through the Clery Act protocols to see if we were actually in accord with those, interviewing campus police officers, one of whom had known about the Clery case or was involved with it, which was a rape and a murder of a student on campus in another state. Um, and I think that to me is what has to happen every year is that we should have an awareness of the Clery Act. We should make sure that all of our safety features are on campus to help us, including those blue lights, including easy access to talk to RAs and other students, and including for especially first year students, including like honest talks about consent and sexual harassment and behaviors on campus that involve drinking. All those things need to be talked about with students so that the students feel safe. I don't know that I know that they do that in residence life, but I don't know if people focus as much as they should on the Clery Act. To me, that was a really important piece of legislation, and the students' work on that seemed important to me. I think getting better in part because society generally is becoming more aware of rape and sexual assault. We're seeing it right now in Ukraine with the attacks on people and assault being used as a weapon of war. I think that's exactly what it is. It's like terrorism. It's a way of keeping people down. It's a way of sort of discouraging people from getting their education, especially women. So yeah, I think that we have to be we have to talk about it more. We have to be upfront with it more. And we have laws and rules like Title IX and the Clery Act to help our campus actually do a better job. I think it's a problem when no one wants to talk about it and no one is doing that work on campus. So I think we could do a lot better job with becoming, in our ethnic and gender studies department, we talk about this all the 101 classes and other classes, but I don't know that every department is doing that work. I think we're a better society, but I'm also older and I'm not as attached to the training process. So I do worry that I'm out of touch and that I don't know.
Okay, cool. But yeah, that should actually be it for the interview. And I really appreciate you doing that for me. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to stop